The Great Pyramid of Giza. For almost 5,000 years, we have been handed a very tidy story. A pharaoh named Khufu built it as his tomb. Thousands of workers raised it in about 20 years, using nothing but copper chisels, rope, and raw muscle. Case closed. Except it isn't. Because the closer you look at that neat little story, the more of it seems to dissolve in your hands. There is no pharaoh's body inside, no treasure. The precision is so fine that modern engineers still argue about how it was even possible. There are sealed doors and hidden voids that no living person has ever entered. And for every hard question you ask, the official answer often sounds like a very polite version of, "We're not completely sure, but please stop asking." So tonight we are going to do something a little dangerous. We are going to take the story you were told in school and the wild stories you have heard online, the lost civilizations, the ancient machines, the cover-ups, and we are going to hold both of them up against the actual evidence. Because the truth about who built the Great Pyramid is stranger than the textbook. And in a way you will not see coming, it is far more human than the conspiracy. The answer really isn't what you were told, but it is not quite what the mystery hunters told you either. Let's go to Giza. Let's start with what is genuinely, provably astonishing about this thing, because you do not need a single conspiracy theory to be amazed. The plain facts are strange enough. The Great Pyramid is built from roughly 2.3 million blocks of stone. 2.3 million. It stood as the tallest structure on the entire planet for nearly 4,000 years. Nothing humans made was taller until the great cathedrals of medieval Europe. And it was not thrown together. Its base is almost perfectly level, across an area of more than 5 hectares, off by only a couple of centimeters from corner to corner. Its 4 sides are aligned to true north, south, east, and west to within a tiny fraction of a single degree, an accuracy that is difficult to match even today, with lasers and satellites. Sit with that for a moment. A structure weighing millions of tons, aligned to the poles of the Earth more precisely than most modern buildings 45 centuries ago. And run the arithmetic on the traditional 20-year timeline, and it gets dizzying fast. 2.3 million blocks in roughly 20 years means setting a heavy stone into place perfectly about every couple of minutes in daylight without stopping for 2 decades. That number alone tells you something. This was never a disorganized mob with ropes. It was one of the most tightly managed operations in the history of the world. Then there is the granite. Most of the pyramid is limestone, quarried right nearby. But deep inside, above the king's chamber, sit enormous beams of red granite, some weighing as much as 80 tons apiece. 80 tons. And that granite did not come from Giza. It came from Aswan, more than 800 kilometers up the Nile, which means someone quarried an 80-ton block, moved it hundreds of miles, and then lifted it dozens of meters up into the heart of a mountain of stone and set it precisely in place. With, we are told, copper tools, timber, and rope. Even the mainstream account admits this was one of the greatest logistical feats of the entire ancient world. The disagreement is only about exactly how, and, as we will see, that word how is where the arguments get heated. But here's the crack that really unsettles people. If this was a tomb, the whole point of it, the reason it supposedly exists, then where is the king? Almost every other great pharaoh we know of was buried in a blaze of gold. Walls painted floor to ceiling with spells and prayers. Statues, jewelry, furniture, food, even chariots. Everything a god king could need in the next life. Tutankhamun, a fairly minor boy pharaoh, was found with a solid gold mask and thousands of treasures. And Khufu, a far greater king, in the largest stone structure ever raised by human hands, was found with nothing. An empty granite box, its lid gone, sitting in a bare, undecorated room. No body, no treasure, no inscriptions singing his praises on the walls. Now, the honest explanation for most of that is not mysterious at all. The pyramid was broken into and looted in antiquity, probably more than once, across thousands of years. Robbers take gold. That is what robbers do. And the plain, undecorated chambers may simply reflect the style of that very early age, long before the gorgeously painted tombs we usually picture. But it still leaves a real puzzle sitting there. For the most important building project in the kingdom's history, the ancient Egyptians, a people who wrote on everything, who recorded every harvest and every festival, left shockingly little that openly declares, Khufu built this, and here is how. There are marks, faint painted symbols, tucked into cramped spaces above the king's chamber, that appear to include Khufu's name, left there by the work crews. Hold on to those marks because we are going to come back to them near the end of this video, and they turn out to matter enormously. But for now, just hold the tension. A monument of near impossible precision. 80-ton stones dragged across an entire country. An empty tomb with no king inside it. And barely a proud word from a civilization that wrote down everything about who actually did it or how. This is the vacuum. And into a vacuum like this, theories come rushing in. Because when the official story goes quiet at the exact moment you most want it to speak, people naturally start to wonder what, or who, is filling that silence. And the first place the wondering goes is to the stone itself. To cuts and holes and surfaces so precise that some engineers flatly refuse to believe human hands with copper tools could ever have made them. Meet Christopher Dunn. He is not an archaeologist. He is a career engineer and master machinist, a man who has spent his life around precision metalwork, lathes, and drills. And when Dunn went to Egypt and put his trained eye and his instruments on the granite, he came away convinced that something was very wrong with the official story. He points to the drill cores, cylinders of granite left behind when the Egyptians bored holes into solid stone, to saw marks into flat faces cut into diorite and granite, some of the hardest rock on Earth. And he argues that the cuts are too fast, too clean, too precise to have been made the way we are told. In his reading, the marks look less like slow hand abrasion and more like machining, the work of high-speed drills and saws, maybe even powered tools, tools that, officially, the Egyptians simply did not have. Then he takes you to a place that genuinely stops people cold. The Serapeum of Saqqara. Down in the dark, cut into the bedrock, sit dozens of colossal boxes of granite, each one carved from a single block, weighing somewhere between 70 and 100 tons. Their inside corners are square. Their surfaces are flat and parallel to a tolerance that, Dunn argues, would challenge a modern machine shop. And he asks a simple, devastating question. How do you carve the perfectly flat inside of a 100-ton granite box in the dark, underground, with a copper chisel? And when modern experimenters have tried to reproduce this kind of work using pure copper tools, hammering away at granite, they have often failed miserably. Tools going dull, hands bleeding, almost no progress after days of effort. It is a powerful case. And if you stop the story right there, the conclusion feels almost forced on you. They must have had a technology we have lost. But, and this is where honesty matters, because it is the entire point of this channel, the story does not stop there. Because the experiments that failed were usually testing the wrong method. The Egyptians did not try to cut granite with copper alone. Copper is far too soft. Everyone knew that, then and now. What they used was copper as a carrier for something much harder: sand. Ordinary quartz sand, nearly as hard as granite itself. You feed wet sand under a copper saw or under a spinning copper tube, and it is the sand that does the cutting, grinding its way through the stone grain by grain, while the copper just guides it. And when modern archaeologists, people like Dennis Stocks, actually did it that way, with copper, sand, and patience, they cut granite. They drilled it. They produced cores and grooves that look strikingly like the ancient ones. And the supposedly impossible part, moving the stones, has quietly been demystified too. There is a 4,000-year-old Egyptian painting that shows exactly how. A colossal statue lashed to a sledge, with a man standing at the very front, pouring water onto the sand in its path. That looks like a ritual detail. It is actually physics. Wetting the sand ahead of a sledge cuts the drag roughly in half, and modern tests confirm it works. Add the steep ramp systems archaeologists have uncovered at ancient Egyptian quarries, and the fog thins further still. Not magic. Brutal, brilliant, well-understood engineering. Let me stop here for a second, because this is exactly the kind of moment this channel lives for. Because if you have followed me this far, you already know we do not do lazy answers here. Not the school book one, and not the clickbait one. Every single day, we take a mystery, and instead of just grabbing the most exciting explanation, we ask what the evidence can actually carry. If that is your kind of thing, subscribe and stay with us. There is a certain kind of person who would rather understand something than simply be dazzled by it. I think that is you. So here is where the granite really leaves us. The precision is real. It is astonishing, and in some cases, like those Serapeum boxes, the exact method is still genuinely argued over. But real and astonishing is not the same thing as impossible without lost technology. What the stone actually testifies to is not a vanished machine age. It is thousands of skilled human beings armed with abrasives, copper, geometry, and a frankly inhuman amount of patience, reaching a standard we assumed they could never reach, and being underestimated for it ever since. But the stone is only half of the mystery, because it turns out the strangest things about the Great Pyramid are not on its surface at all. They are sealed inside it, in doors that no one has ever opened, and in a space the size of a cathedral that, until just a few years ago, no living human being even knew was there. Everyone knows the postcard version of the inside, the king's chamber, the queen's chamber, the soaring grand gallery. But the Great Pyramid has been keeping secrets that we are only now, with modern technology, beginning to pull into the light. And some of them are genuinely unexplained. Not exaggerated, not clickbait. Actually unexplained. Start with the shafts. From both the king's and the queen's chambers, narrow channels, only about 20 centimeters square, run up and out through the body of the pyramid. For a long time, they were dismissed as simple air vents, but they are too precise and too strange for that. In the early 1990s, a German engineer named Rudolf Gantenbrink built a small robot, mounted a camera on it, and sent it crawling up one of the shafts from the queen's chamber. A shaft that, officially, led nowhere. It did not lead nowhere. After more than 60 meters of slow climbing, the robot's headlights fell on something no one expected. A small, finely cut slab of limestone, blocking the shaft like a tiny door. And set into it were two fittings of metal, copper, the only such fittings found anywhere inside the pyramid. The world called it Gantenbrink's door, and it became an overnight sensation. Because you do not put a little door with copper handles at the end of a secret shaft unless there is something on the other side. And then at the worst possible moment, the investigation was stopped. No clear reason given, just stopped. Almost a decade later, in 2002, another team, backed by National Geographic, went back. On live television, they drilled a small hole through the door and found, a short distance behind it, another block slab of stone, a door behind the door. And there the trail went cold again. That second barrier has still, to this day, never been passed. A robot in 2011 managed to get a camera around the corner and glimpsed red-painted marks and the backside of those copper pins. Hints of purpose, but no real answers. What is back there? If anything, we still do not know. But the shafts were only the beginning. Because in 2017, an international team did something to the Great Pyramid that no chisel and no robot could do. They looked straight through it. The technique is called muon tomography. Muons are tiny particles that rain down onto the Earth constantly from deep space, and they pass through solid rock. But they get absorbed differently depending on how much stone is in the way. So if you place the right detectors around a pyramid and patiently count muons for months, you can build a picture of what is solid and what is hollow deep inside without moving a single stone. It is quite literally an X-ray of a mountain. And when the results came back, they were staggering. Hovering above the Grand Gallery, sealed inside the masonry, was a huge empty space. A void at least 30 meters long, as big as the Grand Gallery itself, that no record mentioned, no passage reached, and no human being had entered in 4,500 years. The scientists called it, plainly, the Big Void, and nobody could say what it was for. Then, in 2023, the same project confirmed another one. A hidden corridor, around 9 meters long, tucked in behind the great chevron stones on the pyramid's north face. Its purpose, again, unknown. Now let me be straight with you, the way I always try to be. The most likely explanations for these spaces are not treasure vaults or alien control rooms. They are probably structural, construction gaps, or relieving spaces built to take the crushing weight off the chambers below, the same clever trick the builders are known to have used above the king's chamber. That is the sober, careful guess. But here is what is undeniable and genuinely thrilling. In the single most studied building on the face of the earth, measured, mapped, and crawled over for centuries, we are right now, in our own lifetimes, still finding rooms. Sealed doors we cannot open, spaces the size of cathedrals we did not know were there, which forces a humbling thought. If we are still discovering what is inside it, how confident can we really be that we know who built it and when? And that question, when, is where this story takes its strangest turn of all. Because a small group of researchers stopped looking at the pyramid and turned instead to the scarred old lion crouched beside it. And they came back with a claim that, if it is true, would tear up the entire timeline of civilization. The Sphinx, a lion's body with a human face, carved from the living bedrock of the Giza Plateau. The official story says the pharaoh Khufu had it made around 2500 BC, at the same time as the pyramids. But in the early 1990s, a Boston University geologist named Robert Schoch looked at it with a geologist's eyes instead of a historian's, and he saw something that did not fit. The Sphinx sits in a pit, an enclosure carved down into the rock, and the walls of that enclosure are deeply weathered, not in the flat, wind-scoured way you would expect in a desert, but in deep, rounded, vertical channels. To Schoch, and to the researcher John Anthony West, who first raised the idea, that pattern had one obvious cause: water. Long, heavy rainfall running down that stone for a very long time. And here is where it gets electric. Because the Sahara has been bone-dried desert for thousands of years. The last time that region saw enough sustained rain to weather stone like that was much, much earlier, potentially thousands of years before Khufu was ever born. Which would mean the Sphinx, or at least its core body, was not carved by the pyramid builders at all. It would have to be far older. The work of some earlier people we have no record of. That single idea cracks the whole timeline open, and others were prying at the same crack from another angle. An engineer named Robert Bauval had been staring at the 3 Great Pyramids of Giza and noticed that their layout, including the way the smallest one sits slightly off to the side, mirrors the 3 stars of Orion's belt. And Orion, to the Egyptians, was Osiris himself, god of death and rebirth. Bauval ran the sky backwards and argued the pyramids match Orion's belt, not as it looked in Khufu's day, but as it looked around 10,500 BC. Then comes the writer who tied it all into one sweeping story, Graham Hancock. His argument is bold and simple, that there was once an advanced civilization, back in the last ice age, wiped out by a global cataclysm, and that its survivors scattered, carrying fragments of their knowledge to peoples like the early Egyptians, who inherited wonders they did not fully invent. And his star witness is a real place, a genuinely staggering one. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a complex of monumental carved stone pillars that is around 11,000 years old, built as far as we can tell by hunter-gatherers, thousands of years before the pyramids, before writing, before the wheel. Now, I have to do the honest thing here, because this is exactly where a lazy channel would just hand you Atlantis and cash the check. Let's take them one at a time. The Sphinx water erosion is a real, serious geological debate. But it is a debate And most geologists and Egyptologists think the weathering can be explained without a lost civilization. By the way that particular soft limestone breaks down, by trapped moisture and salt, by different rock layers eroding at different speeds. And there is a stubborn problem with the ancient date. If some advanced people carved the Sphinx in 10,500 BC, then where is everything else? Where are their tools, their houses, their pottery, their garbage? A civilization leaves a mess. We have never found the mess. The Orion correlation is beautiful, but the fit is not as tight as it first sounds, and that 10,500 date was, critics point out, chosen partly because it makes the picture line up. And Göbekli Tepe? Göbekli Tepe is completely real, and it genuinely did rewrite the textbooks. But look closely at what it actually proves. It does not show us a lost race of engineers with power tools. It shows us ordinary human beings, hunter-gatherers with stone tools, building something magnificent thousands of years earlier than we ever believed they could. That is not evidence for Atlantis. It is evidence for the very thing this channel keeps colliding with, over and over again, that we have spent centuries badly underestimating what our own ancestors could do. So the timeline may well be older and stranger than the schoolbook admits. But older and stranger keeps pointing straight back to us, to human beings, not to some vanished master race. And that lands us on the real question at the center of this whole story. If the honest answer is so human, then why does it feel like every door in Egypt slams shut the moment someone starts asking hard questions? Why the resistance? Anyone who spends real time in this world runs into the same wall again and again. It is the feeling that Egyptology is not just an academic field, but a fortress, that there is a gate and a gatekeeper, and that certain questions are simply not allowed through. And for a long time, that gate had a name: Dr. Zahi Hawass. For decades, Hawass was the most powerful figure in Egyptian archaeology, head of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, then Minister of Antiquities, the man who decided who got a permit to dig, who got access to which site, and which discoveries were announced to the world. He is brilliant, charismatic, fiercely protective of Egypt's heritage, and he has done more than almost anyone alive to put Egyptian archaeology on the global stage. He is also famously a blunt and combative defender of the orthodox timeline. When independent researchers, Shaw, West, Bovall, Hancock, came forward with their older civilization theories, Hawass did not exactly roll out the welcome mat. He dismissed them, sometimes with open contempt. Permits were hard to come by. Investigations like the one at Gantenbrink's door stalled. And to the alternative crowd, it all added up to one thing: a man and an establishment working hard to keep a lid on the truth. So let's ask the question directly and fairly. Is that what is happening? Is Egyptology hiding something? I want to give you the honest answer, not the exciting one. And the honest answer is this: there is real gatekeeping here, but gatekeeping and cover-up are not the same thing. Think about it from the other side of that gate for a second. Egypt's Antiquities Authority sits on top of the most valuable, most fragile, most looted archaeological heritage on the planet. For 200 years, foreigners have shown up to dig it, take it, and in a great many cases wreck it. So a national body that is deeply suspicious of outsiders with drills and cameras and pet theories is not necessarily hiding a secret. It may simply be guarding a treasure that has already been robbed 1,000 times. Remember, this is a place where a 19th century colonel blasted his way into the pyramid with gunpowder, and where the smooth outer casing stones were stripped off over centuries to help build the city of Cairo. When your heritage has been treated like a quarry and a piggy bank for 2,000 years, you become protective. You start saying no by reflex. And there is something deeper and more uncomfortable underneath the resistance to the lost civilization idea in particular. Because that idea has a long and ugly history. For a very long time, Western writers simply could not accept that Africans, that Egyptians, had built these wonders on their own. So they invented other builders: lost white races, refugees from Atlantis, visitors from the stars. Anyone, literally anyone, except the people who actually lived there. To a modern Egyptian archaeologist, A mysterious advanced civilization really built the pyramids does not sound like harmless curiosity. It sounds like the same old insult in a new costume. You people could not possibly have done this. So yes, the field can be closed, defensive, and at times genuinely arrogant. Real discoveries have been slowed by ego and by bureaucracy. That part of the frustration is completely legitimate. And when officials stall an investigation, the moment it gets interesting, and refuse to explain why, they should not be shocked that people rush to fill the silence with the darkest story they can imagine. Secrecy breeds the exact suspicion it is trying to shut down. But the leap from "these people are territorial and stubborn" all the way to "they are hiding who built the pyramids" does not hold. And here is the detail that quietly demolishes the whole cover-up story. Because the establishment is not hiding who built the pyramids. They found out. They dug it up with their own hands. And the man who led some of the most important of those excavations, out in the sand right beside the Great Pyramid, was none other than Zahi Hawass himself. The answer to the question in our title was never sealed behind a granite door or buried under 10,000 years of silt. It was sitting a few hundred meters from the pyramid the entire time, in a place almost nobody talks about, because it is not glamorous and it does not involve aliens. It is a town, an ancient, ordinary, utterly extraordinary town, the town where the builders lived. And what was found there tells us, in their own words, exactly who raised the Great Pyramid. In the late 1980s and 90s, archaeologists digging in the sand just south of the Giza pyramids uncovered something that should be as famous as the pyramids themselves, and somehow isn't. An entire lost city, the town where the builders lived. This was no slave camp. It was a planned settlement, built and run by the state to house and feed the workforce. Archaeologists found long galleries that could sleep thousands of workers. They found bakeries lined with rows of bread molds. They found breweries. They found a facility for processing fish on an industrial scale. And they found the bones of cattle, sheep, and goats in staggering numbers, enough to serve thousands of people a great deal of meat every single day. Stop and think about what that means. The people who built the Great Pyramid were eating prime beef. They were drinking beer. Whoever they were not starving wretches under the whip. You do not feed slaves like that. You feed valued workers like that, and they were proud of what they were doing. The crews organized themselves into gangs, and they gave those gangs names. Boastful, competitive, almost sporting names. One team called themselves the Friends of Khufu, another the Drunkards of Menkaure, and they painted those names, along with the name of their king, onto the very blocks they were setting in place, in the hidden spaces deep inside the pyramid. Those faint marks the mystery hunters wave away as forgeries, they are the builders, signing their work, cheering for their king, leaving a fingerprint we can still read 4,500 years later. Then there are the graves. The workers were not dumped into a pit. They were buried in their own tombs, in the shadow of the very pyramid they had raised, a place of real honor, right beside their king. Their skeletons tell the story of hard and dangerous lives. Worn joints, crushed bones, spines compressed from years of lifting. But those same skeletons show something else. Healed fractures, limbs that were carefully set and allowed to mend, even one man who survived the amputation of a leg. These people were injured, and then they were treated, given real medical care and the time to heal at the state's expense. As Zahi Hawass himself has put it, you do not build eternal tombs for slaves, and you do not set the broken bones of people you consider disposable. So who were they? Not a permanent underclass in chains. The evidence points to something far more interesting: a rotating national workforce, a core of highly skilled, full-time craftsmen, the master masons, the surveyors, the engineers, surrounded by large crews of ordinary Egyptians who came in for a season and then went home. Farmers, most likely, working during the months when the Nile flooded their fields and there was nothing to plant. It was labor owed to the state, yes, but paid in bread and beer and beef, and organized like a national project. something far closer to being drafted for a great public works program than to being a slave. And then, in 2013, came the piece that seals it. On the shore of the Red Sea, at a place called Wadi al-Jarf, archaeologists found the oldest inscribed papyri ever discovered anywhere in the world. And one of them is a diary, the daily logbook of a team leader, an inspector named Merer, written during the reign of Khufu himself. Read it, and 45 centuries just fall away. Merer records, day by day, how his crew of about 40 men rowed boats up the river and along the canals, hauling great blocks of fine white limestone from the quarries at Tura across to the building site at Giza, a place they called Aket Khufu, the horizon of Khufu. It even names the official running the operation, a man called al-Jarf, who we know was Khufu's own half-brother. Let that land for a moment. We have a first-hand, dated diary written by one of the actual men who delivered the stone for the Great Pyramid during the reign of the very king it was built for. Not a legend, not a theory. A working man's day planner, 4,500 years old. This is the answer that isn't what you were told, because you were told slaves, and it was not slaves. And then you were told it might be aliens or a lost civilization, and it was not them either. It was Egyptians, named, fed, honored, organized Egyptians, who left us their town, their bones, their bread ovens, their proud team names, and one man's diary. They built the greatest monument on Earth, and far from hiding it, they signed it. So let's close the loop. Who built the pyramids? We do know. Not aliens. Not a lost race from before the Ice Age. The Great Pyramid was built by the ancient Egyptians, a specific pharaoh, Khufu, and the tens of thousands of his people who quarried, hauled, carved, and stacked, and then left us their town, their graves, their names, and a foreman's diary to prove it. On the biggest question, the one in our title, the evidence is not thin at all. It is overwhelming. The answer really isn't what you were told in school. It was never slaves. And it isn't what the internet told you either. But I am not going to stand here and pretend every mystery is solved, because that would be its own kind of lie. Real questions remain. We know who built it and roughly how, but we still argue about the exact ramps, the exact rigging, the precise sequence that raised those 80-ton beams. We still have not opened Gantenbrink's second door. We still do not know what the big void is for, that cathedral-sized space sealed in the stone above the Grand Gallery. The pyramid is still holding a few cards. It is just not holding the card people wanted it to hold. And notice what that real answer actually asks of you, because in its own way, it is harder to accept than aliens. A spaceship lets us off the hook. It says the impossible needed something more than human. The truth says the exact opposite. It says a Bronze Age society with no iron, no wheels for hauling, no pulleys as we know them, organized itself so completely, the quarrying, the shipping, the feeding, the housing, the timing, that it could pull off the impossible on schedule. Some archaeologists put it beautifully. The pyramid did not simply get built by Egypt. Building the pyramid is part of what built Egypt, welding a loose collection of towns into a single coordinated state. And that gap between the real human answer and the one so many people crave is worth sitting with for a moment, because it tells you something about us. Ask yourself honestly, why the alien story, the Atlantis story, the secret technology story are all so much more appealing than the truth. It is not because they fit the evidence better. They don't. It is because, somewhere deep down, we find it strangely hard to believe that people, ordinary people, with the same bodies and the same brains we carry around today, could possibly have done this. So we reach for someone else, someone smarter, someone from before or from above, anyone but us. And yet we know their names. Merer, the inspector who kept the diary. al-Jarf, the king's own brother, who ran the works. The friends of Khufu, the drunkards of Menkaure, cheering themselves on in the dark. These were not gods, or ghosts, or visitors. They were people with jobs and nicknames and aching backs, and they are every bit as real as the stone they left behind. But every honest thread in this story pulls in the opposite direction. The granite was cut with sand and patience, not lasers. The stones were moved with water and ramps and thousands of coordinated backs, not anti-gravity. The builders were fed and healed and honored, not driven by gods with whips. Strip away the false mystery, and what you are left with is not less astonishing. It is more, because it means human beings did this. With their hands, with rope and copper and geometry, in an organization so disciplined that they set a multi-ton block into place every couple of minutes for 20 years and got it right. The Great Pyramid is not a message from a lost superior race. It is a mirror. And the reason we keep refusing to look straight into it is that the reflection is almost too much to take in, because it is us. It is what we are capable of when a whole people decides that something impossible is going to exist, and then simply refuses to stop until it does. They wrote their names in the dark above the king's chamber, hoping that someone someday would read them. 45 centuries later, we finally can. The least we can do is believe them. If you made it this far, you already know this isn't the kind of channel that's going anywhere. We put out something like this every single day, the version of the story that survives contact with the actual evidence. Subscribing keeps you in that loop. And if this one stayed with you, send it to 5 people who'd sit through something this long with you. Not everyone will. Some people do. Leave a comment, a real one. Tell me what part of this actually surprised you. And tell me what civilization, what forgotten site, what quiet piece of hidden history you want us to look at next. We'll be here tomorrow. Still digging.